Hi everybody, it is Jackie Schomburg and it's time for part 2 of my transition from insane, super bright colors matched with some desaturated Celadon. And now today I'm going to take that, tone down some of the colors, and then completely obliterate any subtle contrast and make huge contrast changes. I'm going to tell you in advance that I edited out a lot of me just sitting and thinking and tapping my fingers, not knowing what to do. So this one, the art that came out of this is very different than my normal art. And I think for two reasons. One, I thought a lot, maybe too much. So there's that. Two, some of it's very structured, which is also different for me, at least right now. And I think the good thing that came from this is that I didn't stop. I wanted to give up on this so badly. So thank you for watching these videos, because I was like, I need to finish this. I just need to make something out of it so that I can post this video. So I appreciate your positive peer pressure that I've put on myself to deliver to you. And I think it just really hammers home the point that if you don't give up and you keep showing up and you just keep pushing until you find something that you like, you will discover so many new things. Because you guys can let me know what you think, but this is very different from my normal work, especially one of them, but I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. So it's a complete 180. I hope you like the transformation, or at least come along with me for the ride. All right, so come back with me to last week. This is where I ended up. Very bright neon colors against this more muted, unsaturated Celadon green. So there's almost too much balance, I think, for me personally, where there's kind of half bright colors and then half desaturated colors. But it was really interesting to me. What was missing were some really dark values and some really light values. So, in the interest of shaking things up, because I had no idea where to go when I left it the way that I left it, I decided I would add some black. When in doubt, if you want to change things up, adding black to a light or mid-tone painting will always, if you add a lot of black, it will always shake things up and change the feel of what's going on. I am using this painting edge. That's what I call it. Paint shield, I guess, is the technical term. I got that at Home Depot. I don't remember who I saw using one, but I thought it was pretty cool. It just helps you make a straight edge without measuring, without taping, etc. It's not perfect, but it'll give you a much less organic line than you'd normally get. As I mentioned in the beginning, I edited out a lot of me pausing like I'm doing here. There were plenty of times that I needed to just take a minute, and my brain was just churning with ideas of what to do next. And then I would veto that idea, and then I would skip to the next idea, and then so on and so on and so on. I decided I would use tape because I did like how the smooth, crisp edges were looking in this. So I'm using tape just to make sure that I get those edges clean. You'll notice also that I am putting a bit of gloss medium against the tape edge that I'm going to paint on. That is to make sure that the paint doesn't bleed underneath the tape. So it seals that in. If you use the gloss medium, let it dry first and then add paint. Just like I did with the Celadon last week, I'm putting on paint and then I'm taking paint up. When you use the paper to blot the paint, you'll lift up some of the paint so it's not as opaque as it was otherwise. That's what I'm doing here. I don't remember why I was doing it. I think the black felt too bold at the time. I mean, it completely takes over the painting. That's not a bad thing. It was just, I think it was such a big change that I, somewhere inside me, thought, oh boy, that's too much. And then I pulled it back. And it's only too much if I say it's too much, right? Because this is something that I'm making. Same goes for you. That's the best part about being an artist. And it's the part that took me the longest to realize that I'm the only one who can have the answers about my art. And you're the only one who can have the answers about your art. So if you find yourself, like I 1000% used to do, if you find yourself asking other people if your painting is finished, I know it's hard, but I would recommend talking to yourself instead and you decide if it's finished. Because it doesn't really matter what other people think in terms of where you are in your process. It just matters what you are happy with. If you're happy with it, whether it took you 15 minutes and to a point where you're happy with it, or 5 months or 5 years, you get to decide when it's done. I missed a video somewhere along the lines when I did those black drips, and that is, I don't know why I did that, but I think I just forgot to record at that point. But I basically just took a lot of watered down black paint and painted that whole area and then dried it and added some high flow black drips coming down. No particular reason. I just thought it would be an interesting change to what I had been doing. And you'll notice that I also filled in the black horizontal chunks again after I'd lifted the paint. I did not like how the distressed look looked and colored everything in dark again. I did spray some water here. I'm just using that color shaper to see if I have any water marks coming through and cleaning up the edges with a little wet paper towel. So I still did get a little bit of bleed through on the paint. And I don't know if I just wasn't paying enough attention. Who knows? But I liked how there's some crisp lines, and then on the bottom part where that watery black was, that things feel more organic down there. And it's the juxtaposition between those two that I enjoyed. It was a lot of the same. I put a lot of black in there, a lot of crisp lines, but having that organic section in the bottom left made it feel more special to have that because I had all the straight lines and crisp edges. At this point, I liked a lot about the piece on the right. The piece on the left was a mystery to me. It was such an enigma. I overthought it. I probably overworked it, but it was a really fun problem to solve because I kept adding smaller details instead of making huge, bold moves, which then continued to perplex me because I wasn't changing it enough to build off of it. I was just changing it enough to add more detail, which made it busier and in lots of ways more confusing. Not that that's wrong. It was not helpful to me in that instance. Sometimes it can be, but this instance it was not more helpful. These are Neocolor crayons, the Neocolor 2s. As you can see, they're water soluble, so with a wet paper towel, I can just wipe off what I don't want there. That also means if I do not seal it, it will continue to wipe off and smear with any paint I add on top. So it's a double-edged sword. You can try things on to see what they look like. And I used it because I wasn't sure I wanted to commit to this shape. But I knew I wanted to do something. And I really liked how the rough crayon scribbles in those sections let some of the bold color through, but also really toned it down. And it was also a nice rough texture versus those crisp lines in the middle. But wait, there's more. Once I did those crayons, I decided I would add some white crayon in the colored spaces on this page to heighten the contrast even more between the black and now this white that also obscured some of the color but also let some of it through. And when I peeled off the tape, you can see that I peeled off some of the paint because it hadn't completely set apparently. But it added a little bit of organic character to those crisp edges. And just to be clear, if it's not already very clear, I am not sold on this at this point in my creation. I'm not thinking, oh, yep, that's what I was missing. Knocked the ball out of the park there, slam dunk. All along this whole path, I keep thinking, okay. All right, now I have this. What am I going to do with this now? And I've said this before, I will continue to say it until the day I die. I used to think that artists knew the finished version of what they ended up painting from the beginning, and they backed themselves into it. And I was like, wow, how did they know to put that layer underneath this layer next to this thing? And the more art I make, the more I realize, oh, no, they didn't. They did not plan that. That's just how they reacted over all the other choices that they made. They ended up here. Now, there are artists, I'm sure, that have more of a plan than others. Clearly, if you've been following me at all, you know that I rarely have a plan from a composition standpoint. I didn't know I was going to do black horizontal thick lines here. I didn't know any of this was going to happen at all. I knew that I wanted to do some masking when I started out this video, yes, last week, but that's all I knew. This is me going through with gloss medium over those pastel marks. Sorry, neocolor marks. And after I set them, you can see on the right side, I did use a wipe to wipe off some of the white, even though the white was sealed, some of it still wiped away. So clearly the sealed gloss medium was not enough coverage to actually really, really lock it in, or the gloss medium hadn't set enough, so I was still able to wipe it down. So it's faded, but it's less, the color underneath is less obscured than it was initially. All right, flipped it upside down to take a different approach to this side, because now this side is my, I was going to say the bane of my existence. Not quite there, but it was my problem to solve. How about that? And if you asked me under oath, or like with a lie detector test, if I used the crayon here because I liked the effect or because I could try it and then undo it if I decided to, I don't know what the answer would be. I think there's a lot of it that was appealing because I could undo the crayon. But at the same time, because there were so many crisp edges, I did like that it was rougher as well. But I think the reason that I'm stuck here and won't commit is because I could have used my Neocolor ones, which would not have required any sealing. I could have just used those and they would have been permanent and it would have been a non-issue. So I guess it was a mix of both. I wanted the out just in case. And this is a quinacridone gold glaze that I'm adding on here. It felt like there was too much Celadon. So just to break that up a bit. It also heightened the fluorescent red that shows through just a bit. So here's where I finally was like, okay, Jackie, just make something happen here. So I brought out the black. When you guys ask me, like, how do you just paint over what you've already made and you just cover it up? This is one of those things. Sometimes it takes you 47 steps in order to realize that, nope, you just have to paint over some things. Because in this one, I think I was dragging my feet because there were some cool color combinations and cool shapes that I liked in the under layers. But also, at a certain point, it's just time. So it's not always easy to do, but the more art I make, again, the more art I make, the more times I do this, the more I realize that sometimes you just have to kill your darlings in order to get past to the next level. Otherwise, for me, I just stop working on that thing. If I just can't get past that part. So if you are stuck and it's hard for you to paint over things and you feel stuck in your work, I totally get it. It's not just you, but just keep making things and eventually you'll get through it. It comes down to trusting yourself, and that's a really hard thing to do, especially if you feel like, well, I'm a new artist. I don't do this very often. I finally made something that I like a lot, but I don't like this part of it. It's very hard to take a giant step like that. So can you tell which side is the side that I was talking about that is completely unlike all my other work? Spoiler alert, it's the left side. There's something about it that's giving me like Darth Vader or Stormtrooper or something. But I really think it's kind of cool that this came out of me because I did not expect this. And it's just because I kept pushing when I did not want to do any more here. I really wanted to give up on these, but it was almost like my stubbornness helped me. Well, I'm sure my stubbornness helped me through it because I didn't also want to leave it hanging. And since I had no idea where to go with it, it helped me push forward because since I had no plan and leaving it the way it was never going to be something I was happy with. It was a bit of, well, like I said, a positive reinforcement from you because I wanted to make a video that you guys could see what was going on. And since I did like the right side, I didn't want to say, well, the right side's done and I just gave up on the left side. If I did that in the future, I totally will say that. But I like to keep going just to try to make something happen. And by that I mean, in general, I like having that as the end result. During the process, like I said, I really wanted to give up on this part. I'll correct that. It would have been easier for me to give up on it. I wanted it to turn out better, so I kept working. And I'm very happy I did. So this is quite different from how we ended last time. And it just goes to show that you can start off in one direction. If it's not working for you, you can do a 180 and go a completely different direction. And when in doubt, add some black. So you guys tell me, do you like last week's better with all the bright colors and the Celadon, or this week with the addition of the black and white? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so I can bring you more art every Sunday.